Hi Aces! Welcome back to our Vegas Aces YouTube channel. My name is Angela Marie, and today I'm passing it over to Heather Ferris, who will break down everything you need to know about dealing blackjack for casino parties. Ready to become a confident professional casino party dealer? In this comprehensive blackjack training series, you'll learn everything from equipment setup and shuffling technique to player interaction, payouts, and full game execution, complete with downloadable worksheets and hands-on drills to guide your journey. But before we get started, I just want to remind you to like, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you'll always be notified of our latest videos and live streams. Now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Vegas Aces training course. My name is Heather Ferris and I will be your instructor for today. Now we have a fun lesson in plan for you. We are going to be teaching you how to deal table games, but not just any table game. We are going to be teaching you how to deal blackjack specifically. Now what we're going to do is this lesson is broken up into two parts. The very first part, we're going to focus on the mechanics of actually dealing a table game, and you could take this mechanics anywhere with you. So you could deal any table game that you come across, whether that's mini baccarat, payouts poker, a carnival game like 3-card poker, anything like that. These skills will help you deal those games. The second part is we're going to focus on blackjack specifically, how to deal blackjack. So that way you could take all of the basics that we taught you in part 1 and apply them to the game of blackjack. Now, the thing with dealing is dealing has a lot to do with policies and procedures. Everything the dealer does is a procedure, and readability is key. This is what dealing is all about, the manual and systematic manner in which the skilled dealer controls the game. All actions by a dealer require specific predetermined motion. The dealer must complete certain actions at certain times, following a set procedure. Things are not done on a whim by the dealer. These actions have been standardized by casinos to bring a level of protection into the game. This is the most important tool the casino has to maintain the integrity of the game. Now, typically, casino supervisors are accustomed to seeing the game dealt in a particular manner. Any variation would indicate that something's wrong and should trigger alarm bells to the supervisor. The floor, cameras, and players must be able to see and understand all of the dealer's actions at all times. This calls for readability, cleanliness, and order when dealing the cards and paying bets. Each action must be laid out for all to see and read. Now, I know most of the students that are watching this are dealers for casino parties, but some of this information is relevant for casinos as well. So if you decide to move on to a casino, you'll have the core skills needed to achieve a job at one of the casinos. Now, one of the things is there are core games and there are carnival games. So an example of a core game would be blackjack, or it would be roulette, craps, mini baccarat, payouts poker. And a couple examples of the carnival games would be Ultimate Texas Hold'em, high card flush, 3-card poker, let it ride. Those would be considered carny games. Now, as a dealer, the more games you know, the more valuable you are as a dealer. So when you're trying to get a job, if you know more games, it'll be more likely that you'll be hired versus someone else. Now, a lot of what we do here, a lot of what I'm teaching you, is going to need to be practiced at home, which means homework. It means a lot of at-home practice. And the reason why is because a lot of what we do as dealers have to do with muscle memory. It's doing the same actions over and over and over again to the point where you don't even think about it anymore and it becomes automatic. And the only way that happens is hours and hours and hours of practice. But we are going to give you the skills needed to practice at home, to make sure you're doing it right, and to make sure that you are getting those muscle memory skills that you need to deal the game in a nice, orderly fashion. When you build up these muscle memory skills, when you deal, you don't have to think about actually dealing. You don't have to think about the game. You could sit there and you could talk and you can have fun and you could chat with the players, and you deal the entire time. It's completely muscle memory. You don't even think about it. And when you get to that point as a dealer, it makes this job so much fun because all you're doing is talking with people and having a good conversation and just listening to amazing stories. You're not even thinking about dealing anymore. So with that in mind, let's get started with our lessons. Each section will be different, but each one will help you achieve the next level needed to becoming a casino dealer. So we look forward to having you. We hope you have fun. We hope you learn a lot. And please join us in the next lesson. See you soon. And welcome back. So before we start learning any of the basics, we need to talk about equipment. What do you need in order to practice at home? And the first thing you need is a deck of cards. Cards will be very helpful when you're learning how to shuffle and handle the cards or pitch the deck. Another thing that you're going to need is a stack of chips. Now you can find a deck of cards and a stack of chips on Amazon. We will put a link in the text box below, and this way you can have them ordered to you, delivered to you, and available for when you are practicing. Now, the next thing you need is something that mimics a table. Not everyone has a casino table in their home, so what we use typically when practicing at home, and I'm talking about normal casino dealers, is we get out our ironing board and we practice on our ironing board. It's about the right height. We have a little padding underneath, which helps, and it's a good substitute for a casino table. Another thing that you could do is just take a normal kitchen table, an island, or a bar, and put a comforter or a folded blanket on top of it. And this should give you the padding that you need in order to practice. If some of you are feeling adventurous and you actually want to make your own blackjack table, which I've had people do, then you can buy the foam on Amazon, and everything else you could get at a Lowe's hardware store or Home Depot. And it's pretty easy to make, nothing to it really. After you have the equipment you need to get started, just so you know, throughout this course, not only are you going to be doing homework, we're also going to be having you do drills, tests, quizzes, and we're going to be giving out student handouts. So all of that will be helping you with the learning process as we go through these lessons. Now, that's it for this section. Let's go on to our next section where we talk about you, the dealertainer, and what your job is as far as customer service. So we'll see you on the next one. Welcome back to our next lesson. In this section, I'm going to be talking about your job as a dealer. And we like to call it, in the casino industry, dealertainer, because even though you are a dealer and you are dealing table games, a good portion of your job is being an entertainer. You are there to entertain the guest, and customer service is a large portion of your job. So let's talk about it a little bit so that way you know what to expect when you get in there. Now, the first thing is, after you get done with all the muscle memory, after you get done with learning how to deal the game, and you could just deal it without even thinking, a lot of your job is going to be talking with the players. You're going to be asking about them, you're going to be telling stories, you're going to be having fun, a lot of talking and entertaining. And really just keeping the conversation going. That's why this job is really, really great for extroverts who enjoy talking with people and asking about other people and really enjoy doing this. It's not so much about the dealing as it is about talking with the customers and having fun and having your customers have a good and enjoyable time. So that's why this is one of the best jobs ever, because you just sit here and you just have fun talking with people. I mean, what other job could you say that you do that? And if you have fun, they're gonna have fun, and that's a big portion of it. You want to have a good time. If you're not having a good time, talk about something that interests you. You know, if you're a really big fan of a certain football team, talk about that, and maybe you'll find a couple customers who agree with you, and you guys now have found something to talk about for the rest of the night. So it really is about people. It's about asking them questions. People love to talk about themselves. So if you don't know what to talk about them. They love talking about themselves. You will keep them at the table forever asking questions. Who they are, you know, what they do in life, about their life, do they travel, all sorts of things. You want to be friendly. You want to be approachable. You want to be happy. Again, if you're having a good time, they're going to have a good time. And that is a big part of your job. Welcome back to the next lesson. In this video, we're going to take a tour of the blackjack table. So that way I could get you acquainted with all of the different elements of the table, and you know what goes where, what does what, and basically what's going on. So the first thing is when you come up to the table, you'll notice which table it is based on the layout, the felt layout. So this felt layout is a blackjack design, and that makes this table a blackjack table. A felt layout is just a piece of cloth that is put over the table that has distinguished markings, so that way you could tell what game it is or isn't. So that's the very first one, is the felt layout. The next is the bank, and the bank or the rack is also a very important element of the table. This is where you're going to keep all of your chips or all of your money. This is basically the casino's money. You never ever want the bank to be out of sight, especially if you're dealing at a real live casino. Now, if you're dealing at a casino party, that's a little different because there's no monetary value right here. But if you're dealing in a casino, you never ever want to turn your back on the bank. Next up is the center of the table. The center of the table is the area where the dealer works. It's where the dealer shuffles the cards, lays out the cards, makes change. You know, all of that happens in the center of the table. Next up is the discard rack. And this is where all of the cards that are no longer in play are put. So this discard rack holds our cards. The next element is going to be for the blackjack table, and this is the insurance line. The insurance line is where you place your bet if you think the dealer has a blackjack, and that is this line right here. This is the insurance line. Next up are the betting circles, and the betting circles indicate to the players where they can place their bet. The bet must be placed inside the betting circle, and it cannot be placed on the outside or anywhere around the betting circle. These are not valid bets. It has to be inside the betting circle for it to be a valid bet. Next up on a blackjack table, casinos will typically call this position right here first base. First base is the very first spot that is on the dealer's left-hand side. Next, they'll typically call this position right here third base, and third base is the very last position on the dealer's right-hand side. Now, this section right here, where it is completely void of all markings, it's like this nice wide area on the table. This is known as the apron, and the apron is specifically for the players, and it's where they could place their bets, their chips. If they have a drink, they would put their drink here. And if they're smoking and they have like a little cigarette or ashtray and they're smoking, they would have it in this area right here as well. Now, in a real life casino, we would have a saying: if you can't drink it, smoke it, or gamble it, then it can't be on the table. Of course, casino parties are a little bit more lax, so we don't have to worry about that. But if you were dealing in a real life casino, just so you know, any purses on there, wallets, phones, candy, gifts, whatever, cannot be on the table. You can only have it on the table if you could drink it, smoke it, or gamble it. So next up is the drop box and the paddle. The paddle is located on the dealer's right-hand side, and this is where you place the money or the cash in order for it to be dropped in the drop box, which is right below that. Now on to the playing cards. The casino will use a typical 52 card deck in majority of their games. On a multi-deck game on blackjack, such as the 4, 6, or 8 deck shoe, they're of course going to use 4, 6, or 8 decks. Now, on a typical playing deck, you'll see a jack, a queen, and a king. These are all 10 value cards. If you see an ace, this is a 1 value, or 11 if you're on blackjack. So 1 or 11 for ace. Next up on the card, you will see these little spots, and these spots indicate the number that the card is. These spots are known as pips, and the pips are usually designated with whatever suit that card is. So a suit would be, for example, spades, clubs, hearts, or diamonds. Next up is the shoe. And this shoe has a lot of different elements and components that the dealer is going to be working with. The face plate covers the cards. The finger slot right here is where the dealer grabs the cards to take them out of the shoe, like so. And the wedge, which is this right here, it's usually weighted, so it's pretty heavy. It's on a roller, so that way it rolls. And it is what pushes the cards to the front, so it makes it easier for the dealer to take the cards out of the shoe. Now, some casinos have the finger slot covered, and they'll usually have it covered with a trapdoor or a brush, and this keeps players from seeing what the next card is. Also too, some shoes will have a chain attached to the back of the shoe going all the way to the table, and this prevents the shoe from being swapped or stolen. So that's pretty much the basics of the layout. We are providing a worksheet for you to do for homework. That way you could label each section of the table and you'll know for certain if you know it or not. So check out our worksheet. Hopefully it helps. And we will see you on the next lesson. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back. In this next lesson, we are going to teach you how to shuffle the deck. Now, the first thing that you need to do when shuffling the deck is learn how to hold the cards properly. So let's get a single deck out and place it so that way it is going horizontal, just like so. And when you are holding the cards, I want you to put your 4 fingers at the front, your thumbs at the back, like so, and your middle fingers on the side. So your pinky and your ring finger are not doing anything, and they're sort of curled in, and they're letting these 3 fingers do all the work. So you're going to hold the deck like so. Next step is to learn how to riffle. Now, a lot of people, when they say shuffle, they think riffling is shuffling, when it is something completely different. So riffling is when you have two halves of the deck together. You lift up and you lace them together like so. Also known as shuffling. People call this shuffling. But this is also known as riffling the deck. So in order to riffle the deck, you're going to hold the cards. You're going to cut the deck in half by lifting with your thumb. So that way half of the deck is slightly higher than the other. Pull the cards apart and push them together. Now that the cards are together, if you have petite hands like myself, what you're going to do is you're going to put your hands in an A position, so that way your two forefingers coming together form a point, same point that you would see on the A, and that your thumbs come together so they mimic the middle portion of the A. So you could see how my hand is in an A position. And you're going to hold down or put pressure on the top corners of the deck, and also right here at the bottom right hand corner and the bottom left hand corner. I should say the bottom outside corners. And you're going to put pressure with the bottom outside corners with this portion of your hand right here. So you're holding the deck down, and then with your thumbs, you're lifting up the corners and letting the corners fall into place. Now, if you try to force the deck to do this, the deck is going to make it very, very hard to riffle the deck. So again, you're going to put pressure on the corners of the cards. You're going to use your thumbs to lift up the corners, and you're going to let the cards fall into place. Now, this is what you do if you have small hands. What if you are, let's say, a 6-foot guy that has very large hands? This would be pretty awkward to do. Much harder to riffle the cards like this if you are a larger guy. So what you're going to do is you're going to use a claw. Okay, put your hands in a claw, and when you riffle the cards, you're still putting pressure points on the corners, and you're still using your thumbs to lift up and let them fall into place, but your hands are more of in a claw position rather than in a flat position. So do what feels comfortable for you. You know you're doing it right when you feel comfortable. If your hands hurt, if it feels awkward, if you feel like you're forcing the cards and the cards are fighting back, then you know you're doing it wrong and you need to rethink what you're doing. So again, you want to put pressure on the top corners like so, and you want to use your thumbs to gently lift up and let the cards fall into place. Just like that. Now, one of the things that you need to look for when you're riffling the deck in order to determine if you're doing it properly or not is, do you see any chunks? Are you chunking the deck or are you lacing the deck? Now, you want to lace the deck. And when I say lace the deck, I mean that when the deck comes together like so, there's no chunks or spaces in between the deck. Everything is perfectly laced together and you don't see any big sections in the deck. This is what you want, and this is how you know you properly riffled the deck. Now, let's see what chunking looks like. Chunking would be where clunks of cards are not properly riffled together and you see spaces in between the deck. So you could see these spaces right here and the cards are not properly shuffled or riffled together. Again, riffling is different from shuffling. This right here is not properly riffled and you do not want chunks. If you're chunking, you're doing it wrong, try again. Now, when you're riffling, you might have some trouble, so let's go through some troubleshooting techniques that could possibly help you in the future. One of the things I notice my students doing often is they try to go too fast. They try to match the speed of an experienced dealer when they're only at a break-in level. When you're learning this, you want to go slow. You want to be accurate. You want to make sure that every single time you do that action, you're doing that action properly. And it's not so much about speed as it is about doing the correct procedure, correctly or properly. You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again and have it be the wrong thing to do, because then you just learn a bad habit that you're going to have to unlearn later on. So that's why it's really important to go slowly and make sure you know what you're doing. And just so you guys know, speed does come, but it comes with time, which means you have to practice over and over and over again. And after a certain amount of times doing it, or after a certain length of time, that's when you get the speed. The other thing that might be hindering you is if you had recently put on lotion before you started shuffling the deck. Lotion makes the cards slippery and really hard to grip and hard to use. So if you are using lotion, or if you have lotion on your hands, this might be what is making it hard to shuffle the deck. Now, I know that especially right now with everyone washing their hands so much, a lot of people have to put lotion on. If you are one of those people that have to put lotion on, but you're still shuffling the deck, here's a trick that might be helpful to you. So take the lotion bottle and put the lotion on the back of your hand, like so. And with the other hand, back of the hand, you're going to rub the two backs of your hands together, like so. So that way you're only putting lotion on the back of your hand and not your palms. And this keeps the palms dry, and that way you can easily use the cards without having to worry about getting all that lotion or grime on the cards. Now, another thing that might be hindering you from riffling the deck properly is if you're holding it too tight or too hard, or you're forcing it. When you're forcing the cards are going to make it really hard for you to shuffle them. You want to be really easy on the cards. You want to be light, airy. When you're riffling the deck, you're literally letting the cards fall into place. So there's no forcing about it. If you are holding the deck too tight, this could cause you problems. Another thing that might cause you problems is if your cards are really old. Every single time we use the cards, the oils and dirt and grime from our hands are transferred to the cards. So if you're using a deck that's 10 years old, for example, and it just keeps chunking and it's not riffling properly and you're having a hard time, best thing to do is to throw it away and get a new deck. So you do want to use a new deck when you're learning how to shuffle. It'll make things a bit easier for you than using, say, a 10-year-old deck. Another thing that might cause you problems when riffling is if you have a deck of cards that you bought from a casino that are used, they probably have the corners cut off. If you're trying to riffle a deck that has the corners cut off, this is going to make it near impossible to properly riffle the deck. So take a look at your cards, make sure that they have all four corners and that none of your corners are cut off. Again, cut off corners will make it harder to riffle the deck. Okay, so now that you know the basics of riffling the deck, let's do some practice at home. At home practice, when you're starting off riffling a deck for the very first time, what I want you to do is I want you to take a full 52 card deck, and I want you to put at least half of it, maybe 3/4 of it, to the side. Now, with this small little portion that you have in front of you, I want you to go ahead and practice riffling the deck. Do it nice, easy, soft, let the cards fall into place. And when you feel comfortable with this small amount of cards, I want you to add just a little more to the pile. Now, with this additional amount added to the pile, I want you to go ahead and try to riffle the cards again. Cut the deck in half, riffle the cards, and keep doing that over and over until you feel comfortable with this amount of cards. When you do feel comfortable, I want you to add some more cards, and again, riffle the deck. After you feel comfortable riffling a single deck, I want you to start doing the same thing but with a double deck. So start off with a single deck, riffle until you feel comfortable with it, and then add a few more cards to the mix. Keep riffling, keep doing this until you feel comfortable, and then add more cards to the mix. Keep doing this until you have a double deck. When you can properly riff a double deck with no problems, no clunking, chunking, nothing like that, that's when you know that you're ready to move on to the next one. So again, when you have a double deck and you can properly riffle it with no chunking, that's when you know you can move on. Now, for your homework, I want you to riffle the deck for a minimum of 30 minutes every night or until you feel comfortable. After you feel comfortable riffling a double deck, if you want a bit of a challenge, then here's one for you you might like. When you're riffling a double deck, try to riffle as quietly and as quickly as possible. Make sure it is completely laced. If you could do this quietly, quickly, and completely laced, you know you are at a professional level. Dealers who have been in the industry for a long time always say that the quieter you can handle the cards or riffle the cards, the better of a dealer you are. After you learn how to properly riffle a deck, the next thing you want to learn is how to strip the deck. So when you're stripping the deck, you're going to hold the deck in place, slightly lift it high off the table, not too high. You don't want the bottom card to be showing, but slightly high off the table. You want to angle it at a downward angle, a slightly downward degree, slightly downward slope. And what you're going to do is you're going to take chunks of cards off the top of the deck and place it on the bottom. Take chunks off the top of the deck and place it on the bottom. And that is what stripping the deck looks like. So again, I want you to pick up the deck slightly high off the table, not too high. You don't want to be able to see it. Maybe say a couple inches off the table, inch, 2 inches. Put it at a downward angle or a downward slope, and take the cards or a chunk of cards off the top and place it on the bottom. Do this about 4, 5, 6 times, depending on where you're at, what your casino requires of you, or what your casino party asks you to do. And then you're done. Now, one of the things that I notice some students doing, which is not accurate, is when they're stripping a deck of cards, they take a chunk off the bottom of the deck and put it at the bottom. This doesn't really do anything because then you're just placing the cards in the same placement they were before. So again, when you are stripping the deck, you don't want to take chunks off the bottom and place it on the bottom. If you do that, you are actually putting the deck in the same order it was in before. This doesn't really do anything. Instead, what I want you to do when you're stripping the deck is to take the chunk off the top and place it on the bottom. Take the chunk off the top and place it on the bottom. And keep doing this until you have no more left in the deck. And this right here is known as stripping the deck. So again, lift it slightly high off the table, downward angle, and top to bottom. Top of the chunks going to the bottom. Stripping the deck. Now, for your homework assignment, I want you to do this for at least 15 minutes per night or until you feel comfortable. This is really easy to learn, so if you feel comfortable pretty fast, that's a normal thing, so don't worry about it. But again, practice 15 minutes every single night until you feel comfortable. After you feel comfortable stripping a deck of cards, now let's work on boxing. Now, some people have a problem with boxing because it's just a little strange when you first get started, but after doing it many times, it'll feel a lot easier to do, a lot more comfortable to do. You just, again, have to do a lot of at-home practice, so make sure you practice at home. When boxing a deck of cards, I want you to take a chunk off the bottom maybe like a quarter of the deck or a third of the deck off the bottom. And I want you to turn it 180 degrees and place it on the top of the deck. And that is known as boxing the deck. So again, you take the deck, take a fourth off the bottom, turn it 180 degrees, and place on the top. So once you feel comfortable boxing the deck, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to take a fourth off the bottom, turn it 180 degrees, and place on top. Take a fourth off the bottom, turn it 180 degrees, place on top. And again, you're just going to keep doing this over and over and over again until you feel comfortable. And this is what it looks like once you feel comfortable. Pretty nice, smooth, fluid, not too much awkwardness or anything. I know it's a little weird doing it first, but eventually you'll get used to it and you'll be able to box the deck pretty smoothly without having too many hiccups. So again, you're taking a quarter off the bottom, turning it 180 degrees, and placing it on the top. Like so. Okay, so again, your homework, I want you to practice 15 minutes per night or until you feel comfortable. After you feel comfortable boxing the deck, the next thing we're going to learn is how to wash the deck. Now, washing the deck occurs when a brand new deck of cards is put into play. So if you're on a single or a double deck and the cards are switched once every 2 hours, then you're going to wash the deck every time you get a new deck of cards. Same thing if you're on the shoe. If you have a new deck of cards, you're going to wash the deck. Now, washing the deck it doesn't matter if you're doing a single deck, a double deck, or a multi-deck shoe. If you're doing a 4, 6, or 8 deck shoe, you're going to do 2 decks at a time. So this counts for a 2 deck. Single deck, it would be the same thing. Multi-deck shoe, you would do about 2 decks at a time. So you're going to take 2 decks, put them in the center of the table, and then spread them around in a circular motion. Using both hands, you're going to lay them out flat like so with all of your fingers spread out, so that way you cover more area. And you are going to wash the cards or shuffle the cards by going in a wax on, wax off type of a motion. Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. My students are doing very good. Waxing on, waxing off. So you do this for, let's say, about 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And after you feel like they are washed enough, you're going to bring them together. You're going to flip them up so that way the back of the cards are facing the player and the front of the cards are facing the dealer. And then you're going to let them fall into place. And using your thumbs, you're going to quickly put them in order. And now you have a washed deck. So for your homework, I want you to practice this. Do this for about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, or until you feel comfortable. It really just depends on you. Really easy, really fun, simple method to do. This is something that I would have done when I was 5 years old and I was shuffling the deck. So again, washing the deck, really fun and easy. So go ahead, practice that, do some homework, and join me on the next section. After you feel comfortable with all of those components that we just learned, I want you to put those components together and create a shuffling routine. So, for example, on a single deck table, if you have a single deck, then the shuffle that you would use is riffle, strip, riffle, box, riffle. All of those components put together create the shuffling procedure. Riffling by itself, like so, is not shuffling. In order for it to be a shuffle, you have to put all of those together to create a shuffling procedure. So again, for a single deck, when you're shuffling a single deck, it's riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. And now you are ready to cut the deck. So again, single deck. I want you to do this at home. I want you to practice. I want you to do it for at least 30 minutes every night until you feel comfortable. And again, it's riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. Really easy, really simple. Now, if you want a bit of a challenge for your homework, I want you to complete the single deck shuffle in 90 seconds or less. It should be easy, should be doable. Really, you should get this done in about like 30 seconds. So again, what I want you to do, riffle, strip, riffle, box, riffle. Riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. And if anything is messy, if your hands aren't working, if things aren't going the way you want it to, so it looks absolutely perfect, do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. Because we are working on your muscle memory, so the only way you're going to get this is by doing this over and over and over and over again. Lots of at-home practice. Next, we are going to work on the double deck shuffle. Now, when you get to a casino, every casino is different, and they'll all have a different shuffle for you to learn. So you're going to have to unlearn what I'm teaching you now and relearn what your casino or your casino party company wants you to shuffle. If there is no particular way to shuffle, go ahead and use these shuffles that I'm teaching you now. So with a double deck shuffle, we are going to split this off into 2 separate stacks, and then we're going to split it off again, so that way we have 4 stacks. Taking the diagonal stacks, we're going to put them together, and then we're going to do a normal single deck shuffle. Riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. And then we're going to place it right here in the middle. Next, we're going to take these 2 stacks right here and join them together, and then do the same thing. Riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. After you've done that, I want you to take both of the stacks, put them together, and then riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. And you have now just completed a double deck shuffle. I want you to practice that at home for your homework for at least 30 minutes or until you feel comfortable. Now, if you want a challenge, if you could shuffle this in 90 seconds or less, you know you're doing good. The next shuffle that I'm going to teach you is the multi-deck shuffle. Now, when you're doing the multi-deck shuffle, the first thing you're going to do is plug the deck of cards. And of course, this does depend on what casino you're working at or casino party. Some casinos don't care whether you plug the deck or not, and will just want you to put the plug at the very top of the deck. Others do care, and you'll have to put the plug somewhere in a random place in the discard rack. So this section right here, the amount of cards that's left in the deck, is known as the plug. And you're going to take it and plug it into one of these areas right here in the 6th deck shoe, or 6th deck. Now we're going to do a multi-deck shuffle. Let's take the cards out of the discard rack and place them in the middle of the table, like so. Okay. Now again, every casino is different, so some casinos will want you to do this differently. Wherever you're at, you're going to have to shuffle the way they want you to shuffle. Otherwise, this is a quick way to shuffle, just in case you want to know a 4, 6, or 8 deck shuffle. So you're going to take the cards and place the stack in the middle of the table, and now you are going to split it in half, like so. Oops. and then you're going to split it in half again. So that way you have 4 piles of roughly equal cards. You're going to place the 4 piles on the side where they're pretty much similar to the insurance line, and you're going to bring each one in, and you're going to do a riffle, strip, riffle, box, riffle. So riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. Do it for each one. Placing them back on the insurance line when you were done. And remember, as you do this, as you practice, your hands will get better with time, but it takes a lot of at-home practice. After you've done that, I want you to take a chunk from each of these 4 decks and put them together, creating a new deck. And then riffle, strip, riffle, box, and riffle. And place that in the middle right here. And that is going to be your new deck right there. Again, riffle, strip, riffle, box, riffle. Really easy to remember. If you ever need a shuffle, that's a good generic shuffle to use. And again, it depends on where you work. Now, if you're doing this and you need a challenge, then the challenge would be to complete a multi-deck shuffle in 120 seconds or less. Remember, 1.5 minutes or less. Also too, if you want a challenge, then try to complete the multi-deck shuffle as quickly and as quietly as possible. Remember, when you are riffling the cards, you don't want to hear them. You want it to be silent. You want it to be nice, easy, and let the cards fall into place. After you're done and the cards are ready, if you are at a casino party, you could just roll it and go on. If you're a new casino dealer in a break-in house, you have to call rolling and get permission to roll the deck. Once you're ready to move on, roll the deck and offer the cut card to the player. Now we'll talk about the cut card a little later on, but this should help you when you are shuffling a single, double, or multi-deck shoe. Okay, that is it for shuffling, almost. I will see you in the next section where I will talk about a couple of the other things about shuffling that we didn't get to that we'll probably need to go over. So it's the last portion of the shuffling class. Okay, see you in a second. Now that you know how to shuffle a deck of cards, let's go over the other policies and procedures that have to do with shuffling a deck. One of the things that we briefly touched upon was cutting the deck, but now let's go over that in more detail. One of the things you never want to do when cutting a deck is you never want to hand the cut card to the player. You always want the cut card to be on top of the deck when you hand the cut card to the player. So you will never hand the cut card to the player. You'll always have it on top of your deck and then extend the deck over to the player so they could take the cut card and cut the deck. Now, when you're doing this, you never want the wide side of the deck. This is the wide side of the deck right here. You never want the wide side of the deck to be facing the player. you don't want the player to see this part of the deck. You always want the deck to be perpendicular to the player, so that way the player can't see the wide part of the deck. Another thing you have to be careful of when you're a dealer is players who run the cut card alongside the edge of the deck. Technically, at a casino, you're not supposed to do this. You're just supposed to cut the card and be done with it. At a casino party, it's a little more lax, so if someone's doing this, it's not a big deal. Just know that if you do go into the casino industry, you are not allowed to run the cut card along the edge of the deck. And this is for game security and table protection reasons. So another thing is you never want to extend the deck past the insurance line. Never go over the insurance line. Always keep the deck at the insurance line and no further. And this is the same for both a 4, 6, or 8 deck shoe, or a single or double deck. Now, when you're using the cut card has 2 roles that it plays. 1, it notifies the dealer of when they need to shuffle the deck, and 2, it covers the very last card in the deck, so that way none of the other players could see what that last card is. And that goes for both a single deck, double deck, and a multi-deck shoe. So again, you're going to put one cut card in the back to cover up the back card, and another cut card is going to be placed in the deck, so that way the dealer knows when it's time to cut the deck. So on a multi-deck shoe, a 4, 6, or 8 deck shoe, you're always going to have 2 cut cards on there. Some casinos will only have 1 cut card on there, and that's just to notify the dealer of when it's time to cut the deck. But usually casinos will have at least 2 cut cards on a 4, 6, or 8 deck shoe. Now, if you are dealing on a double deck, then you are also going to be using 2 cut cards. 1 cut card will be placed on the bottom to cover up the bottom card, and the other cut card is going to be placed about 35 cards away from the back, and this is going to notify the dealer of when it's time to shuffle. So let's go to the single deck. On a single deck, you are only going to have 1 cut card, and that cut card on a single deck is only supposed to cover the bottom portion of the deck. When you're on a single deck, you'll know how many hands to deal out, depending on how many players are on the table. And this is a mathematical formula that we use in order to figure that out, which we'll go over later on. So again, that is what a cut card is for. That's where you place a cut card, and that's how you use a cut card on a single deck, double deck, or 4, 6, or 8 deck shoe. So let us go on to the next lesson of how to handle checks and how to cut checks. I look forward to seeing you over there. Thanks. Welcome back to our next lesson. So we learned how to handle the cards and how to shuffle. Now we're going to learn how to handle the chips. You might hear me say checks versus chips, and I just want to explain the difference between the two to you real quick. Now, if you're on a table, such as let's say a roulette table, and they give you chips, the little colored chips that you play with, these chips have no monetary value. These chips in front of me have no monetary value. If I went to a casino with these chips and try to go to the cage to cash them in for real money, they'll look at me and they'll laugh at me and they'll tell me to go away, because these are chips. These have no monetary value assigned to them. Now, if you go to a casino and buy chips from that casino, let's say you go to the Excalibur and buy Excalibur chips. When you go to the Excalibur cage, those chips are known as checks, which means that they have value. Checks are clay composite chips that have a monetary value, where you could get money in exchange for that check. So a check is worth money, and a chip is not worth money. A check would be what you use to play with on a blackjack table. A chip would be a roulette chip that you use to play with that has no monetary value outside of that roulette table. Now, typically we have different denominations for the chips. Usually they're the same, but sometimes they're different. You will never see a $10 chip on the table. The denominations that we have on the table are dollar chips, which are typically white, $5 chips, which are typically red, $25 chips, which are green, $100 chips, which are black, and $500 chips, which could be either pink or purple, depending on the casino you're at, and $1,000 chips, which is usually yellow. There are more chips the higher you go on, but we're not going to cover those in this lesson. So next up is cutting checks. How do you cut checks? When you go to pay a player, you size into the bet. And sizing into the bet is the easiest way for the cameras, the eye in the sky, to tell that you are paying the same amount that the player has up on the table. So when you're going to size into the bet, you are going to push the stack up to the bet. And when you push the stack up to the bet, you're going to put your forefinger, or you're going to put your thumb and your ring finger on each side of the chips at the very bottom. You want to make sure you're holding the very bottom of the chip with your thumb and your pinky. And then using those fingers, push the stack towards the player's bet. You're going to take your forefinger and run it across the middle portion of the chip, and then you're going to lift up and pull away. And this is sizing into the bet. So again, you're going to use your thumb and your pinky to push the chip or the stack of chips to the player's bet. You're going to use your forefinger to run your finger across the middle portion of the chip, and then you're going to lift up and pull away. And this should give you the same stack that the player has playing. Now, sometimes what I'll see players do is when they size into a stack of chips, they'll either do it from the side or they'll use their thumb, both of which are not good techniques. This does not prove to the cameras or anyone else that that stack is the same as the player's stack. When you're doing it, your forefinger has to go across the middle portion of the player's stack and lift up, just like so. Again, you never want to use your thumb to cut, and you never want to cut on the side, because if you cut on the side, you could cut more money than what the player has on the table. So you never want to cut or size into the bets in that way. Another thing that you don't want to do is drop cut. Now, you might see people drop cutting on a craps table or a roulette table, and when they're doing that, they're taking a set portion of chips and they're dropping it. They're not sizing into the bet or anything like that. Now, typically you'll drop cut when you're on a roulette game or a craps game. But again, if you're on a blackjack game or any carnival game, you don't want to drop cut. So now it's time for homework. For your homework, I want you to cut a stack of 20 chips for at least 30 minutes per day, or until you feel comfortable cutting a stack of 20 chips. Now, when you're doing that, I want you to go 4 stacks of 5 chips each. I want you to practice doing that. I also want you to practice doing 5 stacks of 4 chips each. And when you're practicing, I want you to get a really good feel for a stack of 20 chips. An experienced dealer can easily feel a stack of 20 and can tell that it's a stack of 20 just by having it in their hand and feeling it in their hand. So that's how often you need to handle a stack of checks, that you could feel 100 in your hand, and that you could cut down or size down a stack of 4 with 5 chips each. So go ahead, keep practicing. Now, if you want a challenge while you were doing your homework, then I want you to try to cut a stack of 20 chips as quickly and as quietly as possible. Again, just like with the cards, the quieter you are, the better of a dealer you are. You do not want to hear the chips go clunk, clunk, clunk. This is a bad thing to hear on the table, and it means you're an amateur dealer. Now, I know some dealers love that noise, but unfortunately you want to be a quiet dealer and you don't want to make a lot of noise when doing handling chips or handling cards. Another thing you could do as a challenge is, instead of using your dominant hand to cut a stack of chips, I want you to use your non-dominant hand to cut a stack of chips, and also to feel a stack of 100 in your hand. If you could do that with both your dominant hand and your non-dominant hand, then you know you're doing pretty good. The next thing that we're going to teach you when handling chips is how to pick. Now, when you're at home, I want you to take a bucket, take some kind of pot, and I want you to place the chips in the pot or the bucket. And this will be your bank. If you don't want to do it that way, if you want to have an actual bank like a dealer, you could buy this little plastic bank right here for, I believe, $10 or something equivalent to that on Amazon. And that way you could practice picking at home. Now, when you're picking checks, let's say if you have a player that is betting 3 checks right there, and you don't want to get out a whole stack to size into the bet for that one bet. Instead, what you could do is you could pick the checks. So we have 3 checks right there. We're going to pick 3 checks and pay the player. Now, how you pick is you take your fingers, your forefinger and your thumb, and using your forefinger and your thumb, you pick up the first chip. So once the first chip is picked up, you're going to use your middle finger and you're going to pick up the second chip. So the second chip is against the first. Just move that forefinger, and now you have 2 chips together. Switch fingers. So the forefinger is now on the 2 chips, and now you're going to use the middle finger to pick up another chip. Move your forefinger, put your forefinger back, and use the middle finger to pick up another chip. And keep doing this until you have 5 chips. Now, you don't want to go over 5 chips when you're picking chips. Usually it's 5 chips or under. So again, when you're practicing at home, go slow. Use your forefinger and thumb. Pick up the first chip. Use your middle finger to pick up the second chip and move your forefinger. Use your middle finger to pick up the third chip and move your forefinger. So when you're doing it at a normal speed, this is what it's going to look like. And you're done. Again. And that's from years and years of practice. So you can't be fast right away. Remember that speed comes with time. You want to practice slowly at first so you know that you're doing the right thing. And then just keep doing it over and over and over again to build that muscle memory. Again, for a challenge, do it as quickly and quietly as possible. You don't want the chips to be clanking against each other, banging against each other too much. Another thing that you could do if you want a challenge is use your non-dominant hand. We're always using our dominant hand for everything, but when you're dealing, you sort of got to be ambidextrous, which means practicing with both your dominant hand and your non-dominant hand. So for a challenge, try picking with your non-dominant hand. Now on blackjack, if you're paying a player, you're going to bridge the chips. So let's go over bridging real quick. If you have a $10 bet, for example, and it has a blackjack, which pays $15, you're going to size into the bet like so, and you're going to place the bonus $5 bet either next to it like this, or you're going to bridge it, which is usually how the casinos have you do it. Now, bridging would be placing that additional $5 on top of the 2 $10 bets, and by doing so, you're showing the cameras that both of these bets are exactly the same level. Not one side is higher than the other, and so forth. So bridging the bet is really good when you're paying blackjack. It's also good when you are proving a large denomination check. So when you have $100 chips, you're going to prove the very last stack. How you're going to do that is you're going to take the two stacks, put them together, and bridge the last chip. This shows the cameras that you have a stack of 2 chips, a stack of 2 chips, and 1 chip on top, proving that this is a stack of 5 chips. So again, bridging is going to be used when you're paying a blackjack, or if you're proving a large denomination stack, like so. Now, one of the things that some amateurs do when they're paying a blackjack is instead of bridging, they take the bet and they splash it. This is an amateur move and it doesn't really look good. You don't want to do this. Now, there are some casinos that want you to do it this way and they'll ask you to splash. If that's the case, then yes, splash by all means. Also, too, if you're working in a casino party, you don't have the eye in the sky, you don't have floor supervisors, no one's going to care if you splash the chips. However, just so you know, if you are paying a player, let's say he has a $25 chip and you're paying him, it is extremely rude for the dealer to splash the chips towards the player. So if you were paying that $25 bet and you paid it like that and you splashed the chips towards the dealer, this is very rude and disrespectful towards the player. So you never want to splash the chips towards the player. You always want to put the chips in a stack right next to their original bet. Again, never splash the chips towards the player. That certain denomination chips have to be broken down in a certain way. So if you are breaking down a stack of dollar chips, $5 chips, or $100 chips, then you would do so with 4 stacks of 5 chips each. So this is for $1, $5, and $100. 4 stacks of 5 chips each. Now, if you wanted to break down a $25 stack of $25 bets or a stack of $500 bets, what you're going to do is you're going to do 5 stacks of 4 checks each. Again, 5 stacks of 4 checks each. Never go higher than 5. So if you're paying someone, never pay them, for example, with 6 chips. Instead, if you do pay them with 6 chips, break it down for the cameras to see, or size up so that way you're giving them a higher denomination. And again, for your homework, I want you to practice over and over and over and over and over again, just going through and breaking down a stack of 20 chips. It's $100 if it's $5 chips. So just a quick recap. When you were cutting down a stack of chips for $1, $5, and $100, you want to do 4 stacks of 5 chips each, like so. And if you are breaking down a stack of $25 chips or $500 chips, you want to break down 5 stacks of 4 checks each. Now remember, when you are doing this, you are always sizing in to the last bet that you have out there. And this will help both the cameras and your floor person determine that all of these are the same size. So that does it for handling the chips. Again, if you want a challenge, always try to do it quicker, quieter, and if you can, with both your dominant hand and your non-dominant hand. So that does it for this section, and we look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Thank you. Welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to deliver the cards from the shoe. Now, when delivering the cards from the shoe, especially on the blackjack game, you want to remember to always burn the first card. Now, let's deliver the cards from the shoe. You're taking the cards from the shoe using your middle finger on your non-dominant hand, and you're pressing in and up and then out. And this is especially helpful if your wedge is dirty, it doesn't roll as easily, then you're definitely going to have to use this trick. Again, push in and up and then push out. If everything is working fine on your shoe, you should be able just to press down and out, and it should be able to come out. So you put a little pressure on the card, you press in just a little, and you bring the card out. Once the card is out and you're delivering the cards to the betting area, you're going to use your middle finger and your forefinger. Middle finger on the back of the card, forefinger on the front of the card, and the thumb is going to be used in order to place the card where you want to place it. You're going to place the card down, and as you place the card down, what some dealers like to do is they like to have the cards facing them. So as they deal out the cards, you'll notice that all of the cards are facing the dealer. Now, even though most of the dealers do this, it's not technically a good thing to do. You want the cards to be placed perpendicular to the table. So the edge of the card needs to be exactly perpendicular to the edge of the table. And if you deal out the cards this way, all of the cards will be uniform, and it will be a lot easier for the floor supervisor to see and read your cards at the table. So this is how we're going to try to deal out the cards, where the edge of the card, the bottom of the card, is perpendicular to the edge of the table. Let's do this again. So we're going to deliver the cards from the shoe. You're going to press in and out, bringing the card out. You're going to take your forefinger and your middle finger and flip it over using your thumb as a way of directing it. And remember, you want the bottom edge of the card to be exactly perpendicular to the edge of the table. So that way all of your cards look really nice and neat as you take them out of the shoe. We are going to take our card. This is our whole card. We're flipping our top card. And now we have both our whole card and top card ready for the next hand. Again, when you're picking up the cards, you're going to use your forefinger and your middle finger, hook it, and pick up the cards in a diagonal motion going from top to bottom. Now, depending on the casino you're at, some of the casinos will want you to pick up the dealer cards first and then the player cards, while at other casinos, they'll want you to pick up the player's cards first and then the dealer's cards. So it just depends on where you work. Again, one more time. Going to bring the cards out. Going to deliver them so that way they're completely the same. The edges are completely perpendicular to the edge of the table. Going to flip over that dealer's card so we have our whole card and our up card. And the cards are now placed on the table in a nice orderly fashion. They look really nice. When you're doing it, you want to place the card on this white portion of the card right here. You never want to be covering the pips. You always want the pips or the dots to always be showing. You never ever want to cover the pips. So that's why you're putting it in this little area right here where there's white nothingness, so you don't cover anything up. And then pick up the cards and you are good to go. Now, if you are a left-handed dealer, this is going to be mirrored from what I just showed you. So instead of placing the cards like so, you're going to just put it on the other side. Yes, it is covering this right here, but as a left-handed dealer, that's okay. And then when you pick up the cards, instead of going from right to left, you're going to be going from left to right, picking up the cards again from top to bottom in a diagonal fashion. Now, as you place the cards, you never want to cover the player's bet. You always want it to be on the side, and the bet must be seen at all times. So that does it for delivering the cards. I hope that helps, and we'll see you on the next lesson. Welcome back. This is the last lesson of part 1, where we go over the basics of how to be a casino dealer. We've gone over shuffling, we've gone over the chips, we've gone over how to deliver the cards, we've gone over a lot. Now, what about if you have trouble counting the cards? Now, I'm not talking about actually sitting there and doing card counting. We're not talking about APs or advantage players. I'm talking about as the dealer, when you're looking at 4, 5, 6 cards, can you actually count to 21? Can you count those cards and know exactly what the player has as soon as you look at it? A lot of dealers can't. A lot of dealers have trouble with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through some card counting drills that will help you speed up how fast you can do math. This is extremely helpful, especially as a blackjack dealer. Now, the first part of the drill is to take a single deck, like so, and go through it. And I want you to take out every single 10 value card that you see. Leave in the aces, because a lot of people have trouble with the aces, so we're going to leave the aces in there. And I just want you to take out the 10s, jacks, queens, and kings. So that way there are no 10 value cards at all in the deck. Once you've gone through the deck and taken out all the 10 value cards, now I want you to go through and run through the card counting drills. So set up the cards just as you would if you were playing and start counting them. So we have a 5 plus a 4, which is 9, plus a 9, which is 18, and then we're going to hit again. We have an ace for 19, and then we have an 8 for 27. Now, I want you to keep going until you go past 21. It doesn't matter if you have 19 or 18 or even 20. I want you to keep hitting those cards until you go past 21, and I want you to know exactly what the player has. I know some of you cheat a little bit, and as soon as you go past 21, you're like, okay, player bust, we're done. And you don't have to think about how much the value of the cards actually are. But for this exercise, I want you to count past 21. So as soon as we get past 21, that's when you stop, and that's when you go on to the next one. So we're going to stop, and we're going to go on the next one. So now we have 4, 11, 12, 17, 21, even though we have 21, 29. Okay, so we bust, and we're going to move on to the next one. And what I want you to do as you're practicing at home, and I want you to practice and do this for at least an hour, multiple days until you feel comfortable, until you can look at it and you can see the patterns and you know exactly what the player has in an instant. That's when you know you're ready. Otherwise, keep practicing these drills until you're ready. Now, it doesn't matter how slow you are or how long you take. Again, speed is not a factor. We don't care about speed at this level of our learning. What we're doing is we're just practicing counting the cards and getting our math skills to be a little bit more stronger. Just keep doing this over and over and over again until you're all out of cards, and then shuffle, riffle, whatever you want to do, and do it all over again. Nice. So again, your homework is to practice these card counting drills and to keep going until you can look at let's say 5 cards and know exactly what the player has based on the patterns that you see in the cards. Now, I've said this a couple times, so just real quickly, just so you know what I'm talking about. When you have 4 or 5 cards, it doesn't really matter what it is, but 15, 16, 17, 20. Okay, let's do this. 20. So if I'm looking at these cards right here, and I want to know how much they are, I'm going to look for patterns. So I have a 7 and a 3 right here. There's one pattern. We know a 7 and a 3 is a 10. So automatically we have a 10. We have an 8, a 1, and a 2. So we know an 8 plus 2 is another 10. So we have 10 right here, and then we have 10 right here. So just quickly looking at this hand, we automatically know we have a 20 just by looking at the patterns. Let's do another one so you know what I'm talking about. Well, let's do one where we don't bust. So on this one, the pattern that we see is the 9 and the 2. We know that a 9 and a 2 is automatically 11. So we look at this and we see 11 plus 7 is 18. So that's how we know what this is automatically. So again, here's another one. The pattern is a 6 and a 4. We know a 6 and a 4 is a 10. The other pattern is this right here, the 8 and a 2. We know that's also a 10. So looking at this card without even counting, we could see a 10 and a 10, and we automatically know that this is a 20. Up next in part 2, we're going to take all of these basic components that we learned in part 1 and put them together in order to deal an actual live blackjack game. So join us on part 2 as I teach you how to deal blackjack. See you soon. Hello and welcome back to our Casino Party Dealer Training course. My name is Heather Ferris with Vegas Aces, and I'm going to be your instructor for today. Now we are on part 2 where we are going to learn how to deal a blackjack game. On part 1, we learned the basics of actually dealing, such as shuffling and cutting checks. Now we're going to take the skills that we learned in part 1 and apply them to part 2, which is actually dealing the blackjack game. So let's get started. The first thing that we're going to go over is the house edge. Now the house edge is the amount of money the casino is expected to make off the player's hand. It's expressed as a percentage, and it's different for every table. For example, the house edge for roulette is 5.26%. So if the player was betting $100 per hand, then they're expected to lose $5.26 per hand. If the player plays 60 hands in 1 hour, then they're expected to lose $315 during that 1 hour. Now, over time, this can add up, and this is basically how the casino makes its money. Now, the house edge for blackjack is roughly around 0.5%. However, that number changes depending on how many decks are used and the rules involved. Let's go over the object of the game. The object of the game of blackjack is to get closer to 21 than the dealer without going over. The player will get 2 cards at the beginning of the round, and the dealer will get 1 card face up and 1 card face down. Now, to begin the game, let's go over the wagers. When the player comes to the table and they want to play, they have to put a bet in the betting circle. Now, all bets must be made in this betting circle in order for it to qualify. Money or checks that are outside of the circle or in between the circles are considered invalid, and the dealer will say no bet and push the chips back to the player. Now, as the dealer, you're going to scan the layout and make sure that no players are betting over the table maximum or under the table minimum, and that all the checks are stacked correctly before you deliver your first card. Now, for a casino party, you could be more lax about this. You don't have to be as stringent as you would if you were dealing in a casino. So if the player's doing something wrong, just let them know that this is the betting circle that the bet must be placed in order for you to move on and deal the hand. Really easy, really nice, just a simple, hey, this is what's up, and move on. Now, typically in a casino, when you have a rainbow bet, which has multiple denominations in it, just so you know, the higher denomination must always be played on the bottom, and the smaller denomination is always on top. And it goes from the highest value to the lowest value, highest value being on the bottom, lowest value being on the top. Now, once the card has been dealt out, there can be no more changes to the bet. So if the player decides that they want to say bet $5 instead of $25, sorry, you will not be able to do that. We already took out the first card. But again, casino parties are a lot more easygoing. You're there to have fun. You're there to enjoy yourself. You're there. If you, the dealer, are having fun and enjoying yourself, all of your other players are going to be having fun and enjoying themselves too. And that's the best part, I should say, about dealing at a casino party business, is your whole job is basically to deal the game and have fun with your players. So again, be easygoing, be lax, don't take, this too seriously. If someone has a bet in between the betting circles, just let the player know, hey, your betting circle's right here. Let's get started, and just start dealing and talking and having fun. Again, the object of the game is to get closer to 21 than the dealer. Now, if the player or the dealer goes over 21, then this is considered a bust and it's an automatic loss for that player. There are several actions that the player could take when they're trying to determine their hand, and staying is one of them. Staying is when the player wants to stay with what they have. They don't want another card. They want to stay with the total that they have. Now, typically the player will stay if they have a total of 17 through 21. And if they want to stay, they have to show a hand signal. So if you have, let's say 17, for example, and you want to stay on 17, you're going to put your hand out flat like so. You could either put your fingers together or you could spread them. It's up to you. And you're going to wave the bet off. You're going to wave to the dealer. And this little wave right here indicates that the player wants to stay with that. Some people give a short wave, so they'll just do real quick, like so. Any kind of movement beside or behind the player's bet is acceptable. You don't want the player to be doing it over their bet or over their cards. So look for that hand signal before moving on to the next player. Now let us continue what other actions the player has available to them. We covered staying, which again happens if the player has a good hand, such as the 17 through 21. But what if they don't have a good hand? What if they want to add more cards? Then they would hit. Hitting means that the player wants to add one card to their total. Usually, the player will keep hitting until they reach a total value of between 18 and 21. Again, they'll have to show a hand signal, so let's go over that. Let's say, for example, the player has a 13 and they want to hit. They're going to take their two fingers and they're going to scratch the table like so. So again, two fingers and scratch the table like so. They're going to scratch besides or behind their bet. They're never going to scratch in front of their bet or on the cards. So when they take their two fingers and they scratch, they are hitting, and the dealer will add one card to their total. So this player right here went from 13 to 18, and 18 is where we want to stay. So we'll show the hand signal of staying. Besides hitting and staying, there's a few other things the player has available to them, such as splitting. Now, if the player's first two cards are of the same value, then they may choose to split. Unlike doubling down, the player must place an equal amount next to their original bet. They cannot split for less. The player's hand will be split into two different hands, and the player can hit, stay, or double down as they please. But he can only play one hand at a time. When splitting aces, the player will only receive one card per hand. Now let's go over a quick example of this. So the player will have, let's say, $20 for their bet, and when they hit, or when they get their two cards, I should say, they're going to get two of the same cards, or a pair. If they have a pair, they could split those cards. Now, again, you could split for the same amount, but you cannot split for less. When you double down, which we'll talk about a little bit later, right after this actually, you could double for less, but when you're splitting, you cannot split for less. So when you're splitting, it has to be exactly the same amount. And the reason why is because you're taking these two cards and you're splitting them into two equal hands. So because of that, whatever you had up, you have to match, and now you have two hands instead of one hand. And again, you could hit, stay, double, whatever you want, split again. You could split up to 4 times. With this hand, we got 2 jacks, so we are going to stay. Now, one quick thing is if you do want to split, you are going to put an amount that is equal right here next to your original bet. And the hand signal that you give to indicate to the dealer that you want to split is a V shape using your forefinger and your middle finger. So by doing this, you are indicating to the dealer that you want to split. So by seeing the money and doing that, I know you want to split the cards. Now we are on to a double down. A double down is an optional bet of an equal or lesser amount. The player will only receive 1 card, and it's customary to perform this action if the player has a 9, 10, or 11. So, for example, if you have a $20 bet, and let's say the first 2 cards that you get is a 15, and you do not feel comfortable with this hand, you feel like you're going to lose this hand, you are able to surrender and only lose half of your bet instead of losing all of your bet. So the hand signal the player would give for this hand is they would draw a line behind their bet. By drawing a line behind their bet, that indicates to the dealer that they want to surrender their hand. Now, when the dealer surrenders the cards or surrenders their hand, they're going to take the original bet and place it in the middle of the table. They're going to take out half of the bet. We have a $20 bet, so half of the bet is $10. We're going to take out a $10 bet, and we're going to pay the player with the clean money and take the dirty money and place it in the rack. You never want to pay a player with dirty money. You always want to pay a player with clean money directly out of your rack. And that is why when doing a surrender, you always take the dirty money, place it in the center of the table, take out the clean money, pay the player, and take the dirty money and place it in your rack. Afterwards, you're going to make sure you discard the cards in the discard rack. You never want to forget to discard the cards in the discard rack afterwards, because after the player has taken surrender, they are completely done with their hand and nothing can happen after this. I know that there have been times where dealers have forgotten to take the cards and put them in the discard rack, and then they'll bust and they'll end up paying the player when they shouldn't have, because they're not looking at the cards, they don't remember. So that's why it's important when you are done paying a surrender or completing the surrender procedure, you take the cards and place them in the discard rack. Now, what we just went over are the basic options the player has available to them if they want to do something with their hand. Again, the players will get 2 cards to start off with, and the dealer will have 1 card face up, 1 card face down. Now, the card face up is the up card, and the card that's face down is the whole card. So the players will never see the whole card, they'll only see the up card. If the player has a 10, any 10, or an ace, they have to check for a blackjack. They have to make sure they do not have a blackjack before they continue on with the player's hands. Now, the first thing they're going to do when checking to see if they have a blackjack, if they have a 10 up card and you have a mirror on the table, you're going to take the 10 up card, put it in the mirror, and you're going to look and see if it's white or if there's markings. If there are markings, you know that you have a blackjack and you turn over your cards. If it's white, you do not have a blackjack and you play as normal. So we just went through what to do if you have a 10 up card. But what do you do if you have an ace up card? If you have an ace showing, and again, we'll go over this a little later under the insurance section, but if you have an ace showing and you have a mirror, you would turn the ace to the side like so. You would run your hand along the insurance line, offering the players insurance. And once the players have made their decision, then you're going to look and see if you have a blackjack. Take the card, place it in the mirror. Again, if you see white, that means you don't have a blackjack. And if you see some type of marking, that means you do have a blackjack. Now, what happens if you are not on a table that has a mirror? Because not every table has a mirror. Well, you're going to have to check and see what you have with your hands. Now, when you're checking the cards to see if you have a blackjack, and again, you only do this on a 10 and an ace, try not to lift the cards up too high that the player behind you can see. You want to keep it high enough that you could see it, but not high enough that anyone else could see it. You also want to cover the sides as well, so that way players can't see what you have on the side. When you're checking by hand, you're not going to turn the ace to the side like you did with a mirror. Instead, you're just going to check it like normal. So I do not have it. And you would do the same with the 10 as well. Now let's talk about a blackjack. That's the name of the game, right? So when a player's first two cards are an ace and a 10, like so, then the player is going to automatically win the blackjack. When they win, they're going to get paid 3 to 2 times their wager. And that's the same as multiplying their wager by 1.5 times. Now, when paying a blackjack, if you're having any trouble with this, think of it in units and not as a total number where math is involved. So, for example, we have a $20 bet, $20 blackjack actually, and what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the bet 1.5 times. So $20 pays $20, super easy, and then half of $20 is $10. So we know the total amount is $30. When you pay, remember you're going to bridge, just like what we talked about in part 1. And after you've paid the player, you're going to take the cards and place them in the discard rack. After that, the hand is done and you can move on. Now, some casinos pay 3 to 2, but other casinos pay 6 to 5. And when you do 6 to 5, try to think of it in units. When paying 6 to 5, it's so much easier to think of it in units. So, for every $5 bet, when paying a 6 to 5 blackjack, you are always going to pay an equal amount plus $1. So every red chip gets a red chip and $1. Every green chip, like so, gets a green chip and a red chip. So for every green, the extra amount is a red chip. Okay, for every red, the extra amount is a white chip or a dollar chip. Now, if you have a $100 chip, again, you're going to get paid $100, but this time you're going to get paid $20. Why? Well, if you have 4 greens, you're going to get 4 reds, which is $20, this amount right here. If you know these 3 amounts, you could pretty much pay any bet that you have on your table. So hopefully that helps you when it comes to paying a 3 to 2 or 6 to 5 blackjack. Now, if you want more help with this, we have attached a worksheet as well as a chart for you to use, and you can practice your homework. You could practice, your math, try to get it, try to figure it out, see what you could do. Also, too, we're going to attach a link to flashcards. So if you want to use the flashcards to try to help you, hopefully that will help you as well. Now it's time for insurance, just like what I promised you before. Insurance is a side bet that players could take if they think the dealer has a blackjack. When the dealer has an ace up, they'll ask for insurance while running their hand alongside the insurance line. So, like so, we'll have an ace up, insurance is closed. Make sure you wait long enough to give the players time to decide if they want to take insurance or not. The players may only bet half of their original bet. If they bet any extra, the dealer should give them the difference back as change. Now, an insurance bet typically pays 2 to 1 odds. If the dealer has a blackjack, So let's say we have a $20 bet and a $10 insurance, for example. If the dealer does not have a blackjack, if the dealer does not have a blackjack, the insurance bet will be taken and the player will play as normal. Now, let's say, for example, if the dealer does have a blackjack, then the player will keep their bet and their insurance bet. Remember, insurance pays 2 to 1. So if the dealer has a blackjack, by giving them their insurance bet back and letting them keep both, what basically is happening is the main bet will lose because I had a blackjack, so that money is taken, but the insurance pays 2 to 1. So if the player bet half of their original bet, then that insurance bet gets paid 2 to 1, which is the original bet plus the insurance bet. So if I push the insurance bet back to the player, that's exactly the same as if I took their original bet and paid 2 to 1 on the insurance line. Okay, so let's go over that one more time. If I do not have a blackjack, we have a $20 player bet, $10 insurance, because remember, half of the player's original bet, $10 insurance. If I do not have a blackjack, I would take the insurance and the player would play the game as normal. If I did have a blackjack, like so, then the player would keep their original bet plus their insurance bet. Now, if the player has a blackjack but doesn't take insurance, and the dealer also has a blackjack, then the two hands would push and no money would be exchanged. If a player has a blackjack and does want to take insurance, this is known as even money, because the player only gets paid even money instead of 3 to 2. Even money is not available on 6 to 5 games. So let's take a look real quick at even money so that way you understand just a little bit better. So, for example, if I had a blackjack and the player also had a blackjack, so both of us had a blackjack, and he has a $20 bet. This blackjack would normally be paid the $20 plus $10 for the bonus. That's what it would normally be paid. But if the player wants to take insurance on this blackjack, then they would take even money. The bonus that they would get for their blackjack goes to paying the insurance, and that leaves the player with even money. So that's why even money is exactly the same as taking insurance if you have a blackjack. So I hope that explained it just a little bit better. And we'll see you on the next one. In this next section, I'm going to teach you how to read a soft hand. Now, what is a soft hand? A soft hand will always have an ace in it. Always. And it will be paired with any card that is not a 10. If an ace is paired with a 10, it's automatically a blackjack. So, when we have a soft hand, what we're going to do is we're going to have two different numbers. So each of these hands are two different numbers. They're not one number like normal, they're two different numbers. And that's because the ace is either 1 or 11. So all the other cards in the deck have one value. Jacks, queens, kings, they're all 10 value. And then you have 2 through 10, which they are the value that you see on the card. But aces could be either 1 or 11. So because of that, when you have a soft hand, your soft hand could have two different numbers or two different values. So let's look at some of these cards and let's go through them and let's try to explain to you what a soft hand is a little bit better. On this hand, for example, we have an ace and a 5. Now, typically, an ace and a 5, if you have an ace being 1 or 11, then the 5 plus 1 is a 6. Now, if we add 10 to it, it could also be a 16. So if we look at a card that's an ace and a 5, the dealer would say, oh, you have an ace, a 6 or a 16. You have a 6 or a 16. With this hand, the dealer would say, you have a 4 or 14. And that's because the player has a 3 and a 1, which is 4. They also have a 3 and 11, which is 14. So an ace and a 3 is either 4 or 14. Next up is an ace and a 9. A 9 plus 1 is a 10. A 9 plus 11 is a 20. So this hand is either a 10 or a 20. 20 is better than 10, so we're going to say this is 20. So an ace and a 9 would be either 10 or 20. We're just automatically going to say 20 because 20 is a better hand. This is an ace and a 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. 7 plus 1 is 18. So this hand could be either 8 or 18. And last, we have an ace and a 2. When we're looking at this, the 2 plus the 1 is a 3. 2 plus 11 is 13. So with this hand, we have either 3 or 13. Now, the hardest part about soft hands is when you have multiple aces in the deck. Just remember that when you're counting the aces, you're going to count whatever is more favorable to the player. So if the player has a 6 or 16, and then they hit a 2, they now have an 8 or 18. 18 is favorable to the player, so the player has an 18. Now let's go over some drills that you could do at home to practice this. I want you to take a single deck, and out of the single deck, I want you to pull out all of the aces. So take all of the aces from the deck, like so. And if you need to get multiple decks to have multiple aces, that's fine too, not a big deal. And then when you have the aces, I want you to pair them up with a 2 through 9. So again, get your pile out, and you're going to put any card that's 2 through 9 in the pile. And any 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, you would not put in there. Well, I mean, Ace, yeah, you would put in there, but 10, Jack, Queen, King, you would not put in there. So now, when you're done, you have a pile of aces, and you have a pile of numbers. Pile of aces, pile of numbers. As your drill, I want you to go through, and I want you to make a hand. So we have 4 or 14. As the dealer, I want you to say 4 or 14. Okay? Then I want you to hit, stay, double accordingly. So we're going to hit that, and we have a 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. Plus 11 is 21. So right now we have 21. Okay? Then we're going to do it again. An ace and an 8 is a 9 or 19. 19 is good, so we're going to keep it. We have a 3 or 13. Let's hit that again. Now we have another ace. That's 4 or 14. And then we have a 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. And then we have 2 plus 1, which is 3. So this is a 13. It's a hard 13, because if we made any of these 11, it would be 23 and the player would bust. And we're trying to make these cards a number that is most favorable to the player. Okay? So just keep doing that over and over and over again. Do it for a minimum of 30 minutes every night until you feel comfortable with it, until you understand it. Just remember that practicing at home is your best strength. It's what you could do to be a good dealer. So again, there is a lot of at-home practice. Now it's time to teach you the take and pay procedure, which you are going to be using a lot while you deal. Now, depending on what game you're dealing, you'll always take all of the losing bets first before paying the winners. On Blackjack, you will handle the bets in order, starting from the right and going left. After all of the bets have been gone through, pick up the cards and place them in the discard rack. Now, if the player loses, you'll always take that money first, and you'll take as many checks as you can hold before placing them in your rack. Sort the checks out after you have put the cards in the discard rack and you're waiting for the players to make their bets. Never sort through the checks on the table. When I say on the table, I mean sort through the checks on the table, like so. You're always going to sort your checks in the bank or in the rack. Now, if the player wins, then pay the bet first. There are two different ways of paying the bet. The simplest way is called color for color, or you can convert. However, converting is a more advanced move that you'll learn after working in the casino for a while. Color for color means that you pay a uniform stack of checks with the same color and the same amount of checks, like so. This is their bet, color for color, just like that. Now, you never want to touch or mess with the player's checks if you are going to pay color for color. Always size into the bet, like so. Pay all the bets in the circle, and the payoffs must touch all winning wagers. Now, let's say if you had a double down. All double downs, like so, must be paid outside of the circle for clarity. This is perfectly acceptable. It is okay if you do that. Now, after all of the bets have been gone through, you could pick up the cards and put them in the discard rack. You never, ever, ever want to make a partial payoff when you're paying the bets. Either pay the entire wager all at once or nothing at all. So if you go out there and you don't have enough to pay this, bring the entire bet back and pay with the amount that is correct, like so. Always make sure you pay the bet with clean money. Now, some casinos will want you to pay each winning bet with clean money because that is the proper way to deal, even though it is a bit slower. This means that when you're done picking up all of the lost bets, you will place them in the rack, and then you will take clean money out of the rack in order to pay the player. You never want to pay a player's bet with dirty money. Now, as a casino party dealer, you're not dealing in an actual casino, so again, it's a lot more lax and easy than if you were in a casino. So paying with clean money is not a big of a deal as it would be in the casino. So, in other words, when you're paying players' bets, if you pay, let's say for example, these two bets lost and this bet won, if you take the dirty money and pay with dirty money, that's okay because you are a casino party dealer and you don't have to worry about the eye in the sky or management telling you not to, pay with dirty money. So just so you know, that is something that you do when dealing in a casino, but not really something you have to worry about too bad as a casino party dealer. Now, what do you do if a player has a rainbow bet? A rainbow bet is when you have multiple chips of different colors, like so. This would be a rainbow bet. Now, if you have to pay a rainbow bet, you always break down the bet and pay color for color. So break down the bet like so and pay color for color. And if you get the bets out and lay it out on the table like so, if you were dealing in a casino, that makes it a lot easier for the eye in the sky to verify the amount. And then pay each color separately. Now, if both hands are the same, this is a push and no money is exchanged. The dealer will tap the table like so, indicating that it is a push. Now, the reason why the dealer does that is to inform both the players, the floor supervisor, and the cameras that it is a push. Now, one of the things you don't want to do when you're doing the take and pay procedure is you never want to leave part of the payoff with a player. Like I said before, you always want to pay with the total amount, never pay the bet with an incorrect amount. Also, don't throw or slide the chips at the player. Again, this is rude. Also, don't drop cut. We went through all of this in part 1 of our series. In this next section, we're going to talk about your bank and reading the rack. Now, I want you to notice how the smaller denominations of chips are on the outside and the larger denominations are in the middle, where the dealer is able to protect them better. Never store your checks in an assorted order. Always reorganize the rack so that it is proper and clean. At the end of every hand, after you've put the cards in the discard rack, and while you're waiting for your players to make their next bet, then this is the perfect moment for you to clean and organize your rack. Put a separator between each stack of 20 checks, like so. And by doing this, it makes it easier for you and the floor supervisor to read your rack. Now, when you are working out of your rack, you always want to use the tube of color that is furthest from the center, like so. Start with the outside tubes and work your way in. If you use your right hand to pay the right side of the table, then use the right side of the rack. Same thing for the left hand. If you're going to use your left hand to pay the left side of the table, use the left side of the rack. Now, part of the dealer's job is when the player is on the table, let's say they have a 15 against your dealer's 10 up card, a lot of times the player will ask the dealer what they should do. As the dealer, it's your job to quote the book. And the book that we're quoting is from Edward Thorpe, How to Beat the Dealer. Now, what you're basically doing as the dealer is you're just telling the player how to play based on the basic strategy guide. Now, you can find the basic strategy guide in any gift shop in any casino. Usually what it looks like is a plastic card like so, where it will tell you how to play and what to do. Again, as the dealer, it's your job to tell the player how they should play that hand. Now, when practicing the Blackjack strategy guide, use the actual card at home and deal to yourself, so that way you can put yourself in different situations and you could test your knowledge of the Blackjack strategy card as you play. Another thing you could do is use flashcards. Create at-home flashcards that will help you learn what to do depending on the situation based on the Blackjack strategy guide. Another thing you could do is use our flashcards on our website, which we have the link below, and that will help you learn the Blackjack strategy guide as well. Now, we've gone over a lot of the major components of actually dealing a blackjack game. That could be used on both a multi-deck and a single or double deck. But with a single or double deck, you will have to pitch the deck, and some people have some trouble with this. So let me teach you how to do that real quick. Now, when you have a single deck or a double deck, the first thing you have to worry about is actually holding the deck. You want to make sure that you cover the front of the deck as well as the sides of the deck. If the dealer is holding the deck too high, then he could be flashing his next hit card to the player. If the dealer is holding the deck too low, then the player could see whatever marked card is going to come out next. When holding the deck, you want it slightly away from your body at an upward angle, so that way the player can't see what hand or what card is going to be coming out next. Now, when you hold the deck, I want you to take the deck like so and place your hand flat. Put the deck, the corner of the deck right here, in this little groove in the hand. So when you're doing this, you see the little groove in between the thumb and the fingers? That's where I want you to put the corner of the deck, right in this groove. And then you're going to use part of your hand and your fingers to cover the front portion and the sides of the deck, like so. Now, when you have this, it might feel a little weird, so I want you to use the palm of your hand to push it up, so that way it fits snugly and tightly into your hand and it's more comfortable. Remember, if it's comfortable, if it feels good to you, you know you're doing it right. If it doesn't feel comfortable, if it feels like, for example, you're holding the deck too tightly, in fact, if you look at your hands and you see your knuckles are white and your hands are white, you're holding the deck way too tightly. You want to be comfortable. You want to have it feel comfortable. If it's not comfortable, you're probably not doing it right. Now, for your homework, I want you to go home and I just want you to practice holding the deck. I want you to get used to the feeling of it in your hands. Make sure that you are always covering the very fronts and sides of the deck. A way you could do this is by standing in front of a mirror, either your bathroom mirror or some kind of mirror in your house, and check to make sure that your hand is covering the front and sides of the deck, like so. As you look in the mirror, notice, can you see any part of your deck? Can you see the front edge or the sides? Are you dipping the deck so low that you could see the top of the next card? Or are you holding it so high that when you push out the next card, the players could see what it is? Watch yourself in the mirror and make sure that you're holding the deck properly. Now let's go on to the next section. Welcome back. In this section, I'm going to teach you how to pitch a single deck of cards. Now, when you're pitching, again, I want you to hold the deck properly, like so, and you're going to take your thumb and slightly push out the next card. Now, when you push out the next card, it's going to go up and over. So up and over. And you only have to push out the card slightly. When you push out the card, so it's going to look like this. I don't know if you could see it. When you're going to push out the card, you're going to place your finger at the very corner of the card. So the corner of the card is matching this line on your finger. You're going to hold it with your thumb. So you are holding the top corner of the card. If you notice, my pinky, my ring finger and my middle finger are not doing anything. They're not even touching the card. You're just holding the very corner of the card with your thumb and your forefinger. That's all you're doing. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your middle finger and with the nail or even like the top portion of your middle finger, you're going to make contact with the card like so, and you're going to push it out. Now, you're trying to flick the card. When you're trying to flick the card, if you want to know what it feels like, take your middle finger and your thumb like so and flick. This is what it should feel like when you're flicking the cards out. You should have a little bit of resistance, but it should feel like you're flicking the cards. Okay? You want to make sure you follow through when you do the flick. So you push out the card, you grab the corner of the card, you flick, and your fingers are out, and you follow through with the flick. I've seen people where as soon as they flick, they stop, and they don't follow through. You want to make sure you follow through with the flick. And all I want you to do is just practice at home. Practice going from left to right and trying not to dip. Now, if you're on a table and you're pitching and the card goes down, this is completely normal. Don't stress out. When the card goes down, keep your eye on it and don't lose eye contact, especially if you're working in a casino. Continue to watch the area until a player or floor supervisor picks up the card. Now, in a casino, the floor supervisor is supposed to inspect it before putting it back into play. But at a casino party, it's not that big of a deal. So just so you know, it happens. Cards go over the table all the time. Again, not a big deal. Just get the card back and you'll totally be good. One of the ways you could stop this is by practicing at home. So when you practice at home, you want to set up areas that you target. You never want to pitch to the player. You always want to pitch to the bet or to the target. Now, you can use stuff from home, like at-home products, like cleaning products, spray bottles, anything like that. You just want to give yourself some kind of target, something to hit, something to aim at. And when you're at home, just practice pitching and practice aiming. So again, just try to hit the target that you have set out in front of you and go from left to right and keep going and keep practicing. And do this for at least an hour every day until you feel comfortable pitching the cards. Now, the cards will go over into the neighbor's area. If you're pitching and your card goes over to the neighbor's area, again, not a big deal. Don't freak out. Stop what you're doing. Take the card, move it over to the right area, and then continue. Again, this happens. And one of the ways that you keep this from happening is by lots of at-home practice. You want to make sure you practice at home for a good amount of time. Now, another thing you have to keep in mind with pitching is you don't want carpal tunnel. So if you're pitching incorrectly, you could get carpal tunnel. This happens more with poker dealers than with blackjacks. It really just depends on how you're pitching. If you're taking your hand and you're flicking your wrist like so, you're not keeping your wrist straight, you're flicking it, that will cause you carpal tunnel. So again, when you're flicking the cards, you're using the middle finger to flick and you're keeping your wrist completely straight. By flicking with your middle finger and keeping your wrist straight, this will keep you from having carpal tunnel. If you're using your wrist and you're flicking the cards like so, that will cause you carpal tunnel. So you don't want to do that. Now, again, homework, I want you to practice pitching. I want you to set up 7 markers like so, and I want you to practice aiming for those markers. And that's a little challenge you can have on top of practicing. So practicing will be practicing pitching the cards, and the challenge would be setting up the markers and actually aiming as you pitch. And again, keep practicing for at least an hour every day, or until you feel comfortable pitching an entire double deck. Now, another thing you need to keep in mind when you're on a single or a double deck is you're going to have to tuck the whole card. So on a single or a double deck, you are pitching the cards to all the players, and when you get to yourself, the very first card you're going to do is you are going to have the card face up. You go, you pitch to all the other cards. Now you're going to have to tuck your whole card. Keep your hand as low to the table as possible, and using the middle finger, just press down on the edge of this card to keep it in place and also to slightly raise this edge of the card. Take the card and place the card in between the forefinger and the middle finger like so. So that way the forefinger and the middle finger is what's holding the card. And then your hand is protecting the card so no one can see it. So you take the card out and then you slide it in like so. And that is how you tuck the whole card. So again, you take the card out. You see that my forefinger and my middle finger are holding the card. You see that my hand is blocking the card from third base. And you're seeing that my middle finger is holding down the whole card, so I can easily slide that in. And when you slide it in, you want to make sure you adjust the edges of the card, so that way none of your whole card can be seen from the players. Now, one of the things that will help is if you have someone on third base, if you're right-handed, or on first base, if you're left-handed, and have them watch as you practice tucking the whole card. If your swing is too high and you're not protecting that whole card, third base or first base should be able to see it. So if you have a friend on first or third base and they're watching you, they could tell you if you're coming across and flashing your whole card before putting it under your up card. Again, when you're tucking your whole card, you want to be as low to the table as possible and also as quick as possible. So slow to the table, hand off the card, and tuck it real quick. And then slide the edges so it looks totally perfect. And just sit there and keep practicing tucking the whole card until you feel comfortable with it. Usually it's like 30 minutes every single night until you feel comfortable. And again, you want to do it as low to the table as possible, and you want to do it as quickly as possible. When you're practicing at home, don't try to go as quick as you would see a normal dealer. Speed comes with time. Make sure you do it correctly before worrying about your speed. You want to make sure you have the actions totally correct before you move on to speeding up. So I hope that helps when it comes to tucking your whole card on a single or double deck. A player is allowed to play 2 or 3 hands depending on the casino, but they may have to double or triple the table minimum per hand. The player must play his first hand before doing anything with his second hand. Now, there are 2 methods that you could use when pitching to someone who is playing multiple hands. For both methods, the first hand will always be pitched behind the bet, like so. Now, the first method involves you pitching the second hand in the front of the second bet, like so. The second method that you could use is, instead of pitching this card to the second bet, you could place the card neatly in front of the second bet. Now, this second method is much easier to do, and honestly, it's a lot easier to tell if someone messed with the cards or touched the cards, because if they did pick up the cards real quick, for example, the cards would be sloppy. You would be able to tell immediately because the cards are sloppy. You'll know that the player didn't touch their cards if the cards are neat, like so. So the player must play his initial hand before playing the second hand. The only exception to this rule is when the dealer has an ace up card and is asking for insurance. Then the player could look at both hands to see if he wants to insure them or not. So again, one more time, if the player is betting 2 hands and we're pitching, the first card will be pitched to the player. The second card will be placed neatly in front of the second bet, like so. And this way, the dealer could tell if the player looked at the second bet or not. And if the dealer has an ace up asking for insurance, then the player could look at both cards to determine if they want to insure them against my possible blackjack. So that is how you handle players who bet multiple bets. Hello and welcome back to our last lesson. Now, what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to take all of the basics, all of the mechanics, all of the lessons that I previously taught you in all of the other videos, and we're going to put it together so that way you are actually dealing a blackjack game. So we're going to do this for about 10 minutes, deal a blackjack game. You're going to see all the components come together, and that way you will be able to also do what I do, put all the components together and deal the blackjack game. So let's get started. It's the end of the shoe. We're done. We are plugging this into the discard rack, and then we are going to shuffle the 6-deck shoe. Okay. And I started with a shuffle so that way you could see, again, all of the components put together for you to use. Now, as you are shuffling, you're going to get to the point where you're going to be able to do this in your sleep. As you're shuffling, this is a great time to talk with your players and get to know them a little bit better. Again, this is something you're going to do so often, it's going to be muscle memory. You're not even going to think about it. So as you are shuffling, this is a great time to ask your players a little bit more about themselves. You know, how's their trip? What are they doing? What do you like? What do you not like? You know, tell me a little bit more about yourself, that kind of a thing. It's a great way to use this time. That one might be a little bit big. Probably 2.5 decks right there. Possibly 3 decks. Try not to do more than 2 decks when you're shuffling. It will be hard if you try to do more than 2 decks. Just letting you know. Okie dokie. And now, after we are done shuffling, we are going to offer the player the cut card. Player's going to take the cut card and cut the deck. And remember, when you do that, you're bringing the bottom of the deck to the top. And then you're using the other cut card to signify when it's time for you to shuffle. And again, it's a deck to 1.5 decks from the back. And don't forget to burn a card. Now let's say we have a table full of players, like so. Here we go. Now, when you're dealing, you are allowed to deal the first 2 spots with your left hand, just so you know. Perfectly acceptable. And as you are dealing, it's good to tell the players exactly what they have, so that way they know. Sometimes they can't count as fast as you. So we have a 16 against the floor. The player's going to stay. We have a blackjack, so let's pay that blackjack right away. We're going to put the extra bonus amount on top, bridging the bet. 17 is going to stay. 14 is going to stay. 5 is going to hit. So we have 6 or 16, and you would tell the player that, 6 or 16. We're going to hit again. Now we have 16, so the player's going to stay on that. They're going to stay on 14, and they're staying on 20. Dealer has an 8 and an 18. So 20 beats 18, so we pay this player. These players lose because they do not have 18. And we pick up the cards, place them in the discard rack, and move on to the next hand. And it is like that. Basically, when you're dealing, it is the same thing over and over and over again. So you really do get to a point where you could deal in your sleep. Again, the first 2 spots could be dealt with your left hand. And then you would use your right hand for all of the other spots. If you are left-handed, then you would just do opposite of what I taught you. So if I taught you to hold your deck in your left hand when you're pitching the cards, you would hold the deck in the right hand when pitching the cards, that type of a thing. When you are also dealing in a casino, it's important for you to get as many hands out per hour as possible. So you never want to stop the game like what I'm doing now to talk. You always want to be dealing those cards. We have a 6 against the 10, so we're going to hit that. Now we have 10 against 10, so we're going to hit that again. 14, let's hit it again. And 24, too many, so that player bust. 20 is good, so we're staying with 20. We're staying with 19. Let's have a little fun and let's double down on that 10. meaning they get 1 card. Good choice. They got a 10 for 20. We have a soft hand right here. We have a 6 or a 16. Player's going to hit. Now we have 8 or 18. 18's a pretty good hand, so we're going to stay with that. We have another soft hand, 3 or 13. So we're going to hit. We hit and get a 5. We have a 7 plus a 1. That's 8 or 18. Again, also very good. So we're going to stay with that hand. And again, player's going to wave it off. And they're going to do it beside or behind their bet. They're never going to wave over their bet. This one's a 12, so we're going to hit that 12. And we get a 9 for 21. Awesome. Dealer has a 15 and an 18. I have 18. 21 beats 18, so we pay this. 18 is a push. 18 is a push. 20 is a winner, so we're going to pay a 20. We're also going to pay 19. And we're going to pay 20 as well. And then we're going to pick up the cards and go on to the next hand. And when you're picking up the cards, if you're a new dealer and it's a little harder for you to pick up the cards, it's okay for you to use the other hand. So how I was doing it just then, where I pick up the card and I was using this to stabilize some of the cards, that's perfectly acceptable for you to do, especially as a break-in dealer. Okay, let's do another round. Everyone's good. Case the layout. Make sure everyone's bet is over the table minimum and under the table maximum. And then we're going to deal out the cards. I forgot that player. We'll get that player on the next one. Again, you want the cards to look nice and neat on the table. It looks a lot nicer and neater when all of the edges of the cards are perpendicular to the edge of the table. Makes it a lot easier for the floor supervisor to watch your game as well. Dealer has a 5-up card. We have a 10. 10 is a good one to double down on. So by doubling down, we're putting the same amount out and we are getting 1 card. And again, this hand signal for that is a 1 or pointing at the card. So we have a 16 and we're going to move on. Now here's an 18. We're going to wave off on the 18. We have a 12 right here. Player is going to wave off on the 12. We have a 9. Let's double that 9 against the dealer's 5-up card. So we're putting the same amount out. We're sticking out our finger, indicating 1. And we're going to get 1 card, like so. 20, a 9 and an ace is a soft 20, which is a great hand, so we're going to wave that off. And 14 is going to stay as well, so we're waving that off too. Dealer has a 15. Oh, and I get a 4 for 19. So 19. I am taking this, placing it in the rack because it's dirty money. And then I'm going to pay the 20 with clean money, like so. And then the rest of the players, unfortunately, did not get higher than a 19, so I have to take their money. And then we move on to the next hand. So it keeps going like that. Hopefully you can see where we added all of the elements, and you could see how this brings it together to create the game of blackjack. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you understand the game much easier now. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me, heather@vegas-aces.com, and I will help answer your questions for you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for taking this class. And have fun out there being a dealer. Take care. Bye.
Anyway, that's the end of today's video on how to deal blackjack at a casino party. Thank you so much, Aces, for joining me today. We have an announcement. We are currently hiring casino dealers and floor supervisors to write scripts for our how-to YouTube videos. We're looking for dealers who know craps, payout tiles, or big baccarat. However, we need scripts for any game we don't already have a course for. We're also looking for floor supervisors who are interested in teaching people how to do their job. Email us a list of games you can deal, how long you've been dealing or supervising, and a sample of your writing to heather@vegas-aces.com. Bonus points if you can be an actor and or deal the game in our videos. Must either be located in Las Vegas or have access to a casino that will let you film at their location. Just a quick reminder, Vegas Aces is supported by viewers like you. Donations make it possible for all of these videos to be brought to you for free. If you think this video is worth more than $0, then please donate the amount you feel it is worth by clicking the link in the description below. Do you want to see our content 5 days early? Subscribe to us on Patreon, where we give our patrons exclusive early access and coach new dealers on how to get into the industry. The folks on the screen right now are our Patreon producers. Every single name is a person in the world who supports this channel so that we can keep going. And we're so grateful to them that they've allowed us to go on this really remarkable journey. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this. If you can't afford to financially support us, then help us update our World Toke Board. This shows the toke numbers for casino dealers around the world. But we can't update these numbers if people don't contribute. You can anonymously send us your toke numbers via our toke line or by emailing heather@vegas-aces.com. Also, if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. Our business also helps casino game inventors with developing bringing their idea to fruition and onto the casino floor. If you have a casino game you want to develop, email us. You can find a link to our email in the description below. And if you're looking for even more content, check out our other videos here on the screen. We also offer interview transcripts, flashcards, dealer instruction manuals, the world's first toke board, and so much more, all on our website, vegas-aces.com. You can find all of these links in the description below. Until next time, stay lucky, Aces.